This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world. You're listening to The Kevin Kelly Show, exclusively here on placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world. And now, here's your host, the voice of Ring of Honor, Mr. Kevin Kelly.
It's time for another big edition of the Kevin Kelly Show here on the Place to Be Nation, our website home, placetobenation.com. In just a little while, our pal Justin Rosero will tell you how you can find the Kevin Kelly Show each and every episode. We're chugging through our second full year now, and it's amazing that we haven't been thrown off the air yet. But that's what happens when a money-hungry power broker named Brad controls the site, pulls the strings. He's the real mover and shaker of this whole deal. But anyway, enough about that. Our special guest this week is, he's a big deal. And this is a really good get for us. And we got a cool story as to how we found him. If you ever listen to CBS Sports Radio, or if you follow cbssports.com and you're a fan of the NFL, you know the work of our guest this week. It's Jason La Canfora, because he's the NFL insider. He's a Baltimore native and a Syracuse grad. So we'll talk to him about all things football, and believe it or not, the guy is a huge New Japan fan. So we'll find out what he knows about New Japan. We'll find out what he knows about WWE. And we'll talk in just a few minutes about how we found Jason. But again, he's a well-known media persona in the world of sports. So we get to combine two of our loves here with sports and wrestling with somebody by the name of Jason La Canfora, who is a much bigger deal than me. I mentioned it before. He's a little under the weather, but he's fighting through. He's gutting it out. This is how you do it. You make towns. Even when you're sick, it doesn't matter. Justin, I understand you're not feeling so hot, but I'm glad you're here.
I just hope I earned an ice pack after all the hard work I've put in at placetobenation.com, so I could just lay back on that and rest up and relax. But think about the day at work, right? Okay, so let's say you work 8:30 to 5. 5 o'clock rolls around, and as soon as like the bell rings or whatever, somebody rushes towards you with an ice pack and puts it on you. Like that might, and then you're refreshed for the drive home. I feel great for the drive home, and it's a 5 o'clock world when that whistle blows, Kev, and I need the ice pack, you know?
That's it. You're laying on the ground. I love that thing. I've gotten like obsessed now with the ice pack. It's one of the things that we brought from New Japan into Ring of Honor, and I can tell you this, I think the first few times they were just props. They may have had like water in them, or maybe just been empty bags. I don't know.
Well, you know the joke.
But now
right?
There's legit ice in them.
Well, you know the joke, right? It was wasn't it part of like CM Punk's testimony or whatever when he left that? I think it was part of Punk's thing, or it leaked out from somewhere around like you have to be veteran status to like earn the ice pack, the usage of the ice pack in the locker room in WWE. I don't know if it's ever been substantiated, but that's the word on the streets.
Well, listen, I'll be interested to find out if when we talk with Jason a little bit later on, his thoughts about the health and safety and wellness of the athletes. Because I know in covering the NFL, it's been such a big topic of discussion. We talked about it here. We had a big deep dive in our last episode and a lot of great fan reaction to that as well. I'll be curious to see how, and we're going to find out what Jason's will gauge his total fandom. And I think it might be a brand new thing for him. We're not sure. Mm-hmm. But, how as he watches this and he sees the collisions and he sees what the athletes go through, if he starts to look at things through the football prism when it comes to concussions and health and safety and things like that, and these guys are playing without pads or helmets, so it's a whole different ballgame out there.
I'm going to grill him on who he thinks the Jets quarterback is going to be as well.
It's pretty much why you booked him, right?
Yes. I want insider news, damn it. Antonio Cromartie got cut today.
So, okay, before we talk, we've got to talk about Fastlane, and we'll talk about Honor Rising, because those were the two most recent events. Mm-hmm. How did we find Jason? How did we get him? It was all through Twitter, correct?
He tweeted about watching New Japan and how excited he was, and guess what? The host of the show is also one of the voices of New Japan Pro Wrestling, so when it comes to Ring of Honor anyway, and I said, well, what the hell? Well, I'm going to reach out to him on Twitter, said, Jason, we got the voice of New Japan here doing a podcast. We'd love to have you on. I know he does a lot of radio stuff. So within moments, he had responded back, and we became best friends right away.
Now, is it strong to say best friends?
Yeah, that's a yes. It's strong.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Pals.
That's fair. I'll be, finding out. I'm going to ask him if you've been like cyber stalking him for Jets news, or if there's been DMs or just oddness.
Soon. It's coming soon. It'll be like as soon as we get closer to free agency and the draft, I'll be hounding him probably.
Were you surprised that they let go of Antonio Cromartie today, which is Jason tweeted about that this morning?
No. If you look at how much he was paid and how his contract was structured, it was always going to be like a one-year thing. In fact, when you looked at most salary projections for next year, and when it comes to them trying to re-sign guys, like he was always just factored as not being there, basically, because he had no dead hits. Like his money was all clearable. Excuse me. And when you look at what he did last year on the field, it doesn't equal the money he was getting paid. So they have a bunch of young guys that can step in and probably reasonably give what he gave last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was great in his original stint with the Jets, and really good corner overall. I think time just caught up to him. He was always a bit of a speed gambler, and I think that part of it, just his guessing game, he was getting burnt a little bit more because he's just not as fast, a little bit older. And he played better as the year went on, but they have other guys that could step in, and they have bigger needs than him when it comes to quarterback, when it comes to Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson and all these other guys that are just mean a little bit more to the franchise than Cromartie at this point.
Plus, it's probably a little bit easier to. I mean, it's going to free up some seats for game day because with all the kids that Cromartie had, right?
The daycare charges. They'll be able to release a couple of daycare workers at the stadium.
And again, it's about the salary cap and about the daycare. You can only have so many kids per instructor. There's rules and regulations. He has 11, right?
Something like that. I think he's got another one on the way or something.
Oh, good. And he was a Florida State guy, so I never really count him, though. I don't know. I never grooved on him. He was part of that era of the team that I really disliked when, post 2003, when Bowden started to lose control of the team, and it lingered on until they finally got rid of him. So, anyway. Okay. Did you, I'll ask you this, did you watch either of the Honor Rising events, or did you watch Fastlane?
I did not watch the Honor Rising events, but I read the great recaps on PlayStation.com by Dave Musgrave. They're both up there now.
Now, is he the guy, is he the heavy metal guy?
No. It's not him. I mean, it could be. He made Moonlight.
All right.
As far as I know, that was a different guy.
All right. Just checking.
So this Dave Musgrave co-hosts the Wrestling Culture podcast here at PlayStation.com, and also used to be the ROH recapper for The Observer. So he's with us now. And he recapped both those pieces, and they're both really good, so I recommend. And, of course, use the hashtag when you're out on Twitter, ROH Nation, because we're robusting, if that's a word, our ROH coverage with him, the man you referenced before, the Joe Koff of PTBN, Brad. And they're going to be we're putting a team together to increase our ROH coverage at the site. So this is all part of it. It's already started. So use the hashtag if you're talking about it, and we'll get things running.
And okay, so I got up. Here's how things work.
Yeah,
it felt weird to me that I wasn't there, and the reason that I didn't do them live is because we're going to basically they're going to put they're going to make episodes of TV out of this, but they are going to include a lot of other stuff that was being shot throughout the few days where the crew was there. So it was decided that it would make more sense, and I agree with it completely, that it would make more sense for us to voice those shows in post-production because there will be so many other elements that will live in the show. They're going to be different shows, unique shows, and it's going to start in, I think, 2 weeks on Ring of Honor Wrestling Television. So fans that did not get to see Honor Rising live, you can, if you don't want to wait, you can go watch the events in their entirety with no commentary at NJPWWorld.com. You have to get a subscription. It's $9.99 yen a month. So it works out to about $8.35 US per month. And you get a lot of content with it. So you can see those events as they happen, or you'll be able to see them over the next few weeks and Ring of Honor Wrestling Television. I think starting in 3 weeks. We still have 3 more weeks left because this was just the first episode that was taped in Nashville, 1, 2, 3, and then the next one will be from Honor Rising. So there you go.
Well, it's funny because I was traveling when this was going on, and I woke up and I'm like, wait a minute, was Kevin in Japan? He didn't say he was going to Japan. And so I, of course, like I always do, search Twitter for you to see if you were getting ripped for your commentary. But I'm like, oh, I guess he didn't.
Oh, that's not nice at all.
Well, I like to make sure I'm up on the news, you know what I mean? So we can talk about it here.
You like to kick me when I'm down.
No, I like to pick you up when you're down.
That's true.
Like footprints, like pick you up. I was the pair of footprints in the sand, Kevin. Carry.
That's right, because I was being carried by you. Yeah. The shows I thought were really good. They were great showcases for the Ring of Honor stars that had, getting exposed really to a new fan base over there. So it was great. I know for Moose and Dalton Castle, it was their first times being there. I know from reading Moose's tweets, he had a wonderful time and was really well received. Dalton Castle had some fun moments. It's going to be interesting to see how, is the door going to be now open for them to come back? I would imagine so. Will there be other guys coming over? I know Adam Cole was originally supposed to go, but something came up family-wise and he couldn't go. So I know he'll be one that'll probably go the next time. It's very exciting, and the relationship between Ring of Honor and New Japan continues to grow and strengthen, and I think it's the best thing for both companies because, let's face it, New Japan is a bigger company than Ring of Honor, okay? And we don't hurt from getting the rub from those guys. But as far as New Japan and building a brand that goes beyond the shores of Japan, because they own that country, all the fans turning over there. But if they want to make it so lucrative that guys don't want to leave, they want to stay, and they don't have to worry about competition from WWE, the way to do that is to become a global player. So that's what they're doing now. And it's great to be on the front lines of that. And to be, part of the growth and development of the product and the brand as it, leaves just the border of Japan and where it was before the relationship with Ring of Honor. And hopefully we can help propel it to newer and bigger heights. But at the same time, specter of Ring of Honor grows. So you can't, it's a perfect relationship. So 2 title changes as well at Honor Rising, which we'll talk about briefly. On the first night, Tomohiro Ishii defeated Roderick Strong to become the new Ring of Honor World Television Champion. And there's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen there with that. I think we'll have some more on that probably tomorrow on the site. And then the next night, Kenny Omega and the Bucks. Man, what a run for Omega so far in 2016. They unseated the Briscoes and Yano to become the new Never Openweight 6-man tag team champions. Now Omega is one of Locke and Forrest's favorites, by the way. He's not only the IWGP Intercontinental Champion, but he is also now a 6-man tag team champion as well with the Young Bucks. Omega and the Bucks are called the Elite, and they are certainly living up to that mantra, that mantle that they've set for themselves. They are at the top of their ball game right now. So
I prefer Omega Bucks. I saw that one on Twitter.
Ooh, Omega Bucks is nice. Yeah. That's very good. A little homage there to if you did something with DiBiase and Savage, they would be the Mega Bucks.
There you go. So all this, brand building, you're going to Japan, hitting the big time Ring of Honor, brings you to the next step in elevating Ring of Honor to West Warwick, Rhode Island, Kevin, in a couple months. And we're really pumped about that already.
April 30th is the date. And I think now the tickets go on sale. I know they always go on sale first for ringside members and then like a couple of days later for the general public. So
I think they're on sale because our buddy Matt Souza was asking what the plan was for seating. So we got to sort that out.
All right. So go to ROHWrestling.com if you want to see any of the Ring of Honor live events. And I can tell you this, it's a tough ticket to get, not just in West Warwick, Rhode Island, but this weekend coming up, we've got the 14th anniversary pay-per-view in Las Vegas. Friday night, completely sold out. Saturday, there's a few good seats remaining. That will probably be sold out by the time the weekend rolls around. Then our next event is going to be in Philadelphia on March the 12th. Tickets are moving very briskly for that. Then we go to the first weekend of April at Supercard of Honor in Dallas. Both of those events are sold out. And then before we know it, we'll be in West Warwick at the end of the month. And I think there's another event in there as well. I can't remember. My brain is. I have to look. I think is it San Antonio?
No, before you go full Scott Criscolo on us, the West Warwick show is going to be a little weird for me because I played basketball there growing up as a kid at that very arena. And I also have a picture on the wall in this very studio that I sit in when I was a young 12 meeting Virgil and Tatanka at the West Warwick Civic Center or some like convention show. And the picture sits on my wall today with my group of us and the two of them.
I can tell you that neither of them will be there on April the 30th.
Well, Virgil may be there. Might be working.
If he sets up his own table outside.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That'd be fine. Yes, 423, April 23rd, San Antonio, Texas, back at the Shrine. And tickets for all those events are on sale now at ROHWrestling.com.
Similar type cities. Excellent, though. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And the Honor Rising card's got a lot of good vibes around the net, a lot of good reviews. So that was good to see. And like I said, be sure to check out Dave's pieces as well. Yeah, welcome, Dave. And be sure to check out his writing. So much great stuff on the site. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So, okay, you watched Fastlane. Mm-hmm. Now, you were sick, so did you go to Boneheads, as is the tradition, or was it a home game for you? A home game, but we ate Boneheads.
Okay.
So me and the cowboy chilled out at the house, watched the show, got some wings, got some loaded tots that are new on the menu. Those are pretty good. And the show wasn't, I mean, you know, obviously there's a lot wrong with the direction of the booking. I thought on a match level there was some good stuff in there. I was a little disappointed that they put the Del Rio Kalisto match on the pre-show because I thought that was maybe the second best match on the night, at least at the third, maybe the third best. Probably could have saved a lot of trouble from some of the BS they put on the show itself, which included the Edge and Christian stuff, which I know was to promote the show, but that dragged. And then they did this awful thing with the Social Outcasts and R-Truth that should have been on the pre-show. The highlight of the pre-show as well. The match was really good, and Mauro Ranallo called the match. So overall, that was one of the better parts of the show. AJ and Jericho delivered. I thought that was really good. I thought their TV match was better, but this match was really good. It built really well. Some issue with them burning the Styles Clash. I don't know if you read that. Jericho kicked out, and then he beat him with the calf crusher right afterwards. And, I mean, I suspect they're doing it because they just don't see it as a viable finisher in WWE because not everyone can take it, and it's kind of dangerous. I just think they could have blown it off. You know, they didn't have to wait forever to do it, but they could have done it in a bigger match than that. Maybe even save it for Mania, you know what I mean? Have it done there in a bigger time match.
Well, I understand, and if that's the direction that they want to go, then that's the direction that they went. But I don't understand where all the venom came from. Now, I did not see the show live, but I, of course, knew all the results. But why was everybody so upset with what happened?
In the main event, yes. So
why?
Well, I mean, I think everyone, you know, I'll say even including me, because we talked about it on the show, and mine was more like, this is what they kind of should, like, I feel they should do and would be better course, and kind of hoping maybe it would happen because of the way things were headed, was that Dean Ambrose was going to get the nod. You know, we had tied it into 2005 with Batista and Orton. Ambrose losing the Intercontinental title on Raw last week seemed to maybe tip that, okay, maybe they're getting the title off him to set him up. And the match was really good, but the issue was the guys all took a shit kicking, and Ambrose like bashed them both with chairs, and then like a second later, Reigns pops up, hits a spear, and wins. It felt very anticlimactic. And regardless of what you feel about Roman Reigns, and I think a lot of this has become just this groundswell of anti-momentum for him, that everyone's just against the idea of Roman Reigns at this point, that no matter what this guy does, he's a lost cause, because the perception is so bad at this point that it's almost gonna be impossible to change it without making serious changes to his character. And I don't know what Mania is gonna be like. I'm hopeful to be there, so we'll see. But I don't know. I don't know if they close the show with that match. I don't think they're setting themselves up for a very happy ending to Mania. Now, I sat in the arena at 29 when John Cena beat The Rock in the rematch, and it was that same kind of flat reaction when he won. And I feel like this will be 10 times worse, because that was just kind of like, okay, whatever. And this is going to be like, screw you. We've been telling you for a year we don't want this guy to close Mania with the title win. And I think at this point, if you look back, I wonder if they would, knowing how things are right now, if they regret doing the Seth Rollins cash in at Mania last year, and if they should have just pulled the trigger and let Reigns win the belt and then just had Rollins cash in like a couple months later. Like I'm really curious if they kind of feel like they screwed that up at this point, because they had a year to fix this, and now they've made it worse. And there's a big rumor, of course, that John Cena is going to find his way to be ready, as he always somehow finds a way, for Mania, and that he will be The Undertaker's opponent now, because the word is it was someone that's not on the active roster currently. It's a big deal. That's a match they've never done. And, Kevin, I ask you, if John Cena comes back and fights The Undertaker at WrestleMania, is that your main event? Like, to me, you only go forward with a match like Reigns and Hunter, knowing what the reaction is going to be, if you can kind of safely put it under a bigger draw.
I don't hate that. And by the way, as we're recording this live on Monday night, Vince McMahon has just gotten in the ring to give his award. Okay, he hasn't revealed who it is yet.
Right.
What if it's Hulk Hogan?
That'd be great.
That would be awesome.
For all your blatant racism.
Then our bet for WrestleMania could be on.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't hate that idea. I think that I'm looking at the fan base two different ways now. It's a different business model. It's a different mindset. It's a different everything. The idea of the hate for Reigns, I'm not quite feeling. I don't understand it. I see why, because I don't know. But the WWE now is concerned about the kid and his parents going to the live event and buying the merchandise and buying the ticket and watching the TV and doing the social media things and that type of stuff. They're definitely not worried about me at 48 years old. They're not really worried about you. What are you, 32, 29? How old are you?
Yeah, I like that. Yep.
Which one?
35.
35. I never would have guessed you're that old.
I go old fast on you, Kev. When
They're
first
not,
met, I was only like 32.
How they grow up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not concerned with McGinn or the Cowboy. They're not concerned with anybody that reads PlaceToBeNation.com. They're not. They are concerned with
which is dumb, by the way, because they have a network completely geared towards everyone you just mentioned. But
exactly.
Anyway.
That's where they get your money. They got you, and they know you're not going anywhere. Please cancel your subscription. If you want to complain about everything that's going on, please cancel your subscription right now for the network. And I guarantee you nobody's going to do it. Okay, so
there are people who vow to
bringing out. By the way, they're bringing out Stephanie for this deal. Is this where they shoot the angle with Ronda Rousey?
No, I don't think she's coming. I think she's got too much going on.
All I care about is the Mania card at this point. So
I mean, there are people who, say they're not going to watch Raw again and they last 20 minutes. So I mean, canceling the network is usually not something that happens, or at least on a mass level. But I know where you're going with this. But is it a good, thing to set up to have the guy you want the kids to buy the merch of, to be in love with and cheer? Kids are impressionable. So if you're in an arena with 15,000 people or whatever, and you're a kid and you see everyone booing Roman Reigns, odds are you're probably going to join in. You know what I mean? I mean, unless you're really in love with the guy. Like, Cena, it worked with Cena because the kids adored him and they had the clothes and everything. So, like, they cry or they get, indignant when you'd boo Cena. Reigns, I don't know. But, I mean, there were times when he's cheered still in the arena, so I'm not sure. But all I know is in his biggest moments and heading down this road to Mania, they've done him no favors with the booking. And I think that's been a bigger problem overall versus the anything he does. I mean, his promos haven't been great, but there are ways to protect him that they're not doing. And I think, when he was in the Shield, he was really well liked because he was just a big muscle. The other guys were doing kind of the heavy lifting, and he'd come in and land the big shot, and he looked good in that. He was protected. He looked good in that situation. But now he's forced to kind of be a man on an island and be the anti-authority face of the company. To me, it just doesn't have the look. I mean, you look at him, and he's kind of a pretty boy. He's got the cat. And Shane O'Mac, wow, that was one of the predictions. When the hell is the last time he was on? Here he comes.
Wait, it's Shane?
Well, I don't know I don't think he won the award, but he's coming out. Well, his music.
Oh, wow, cool.
Nice.
See, I got the DirecTV, so my deal's a little laggy.
So anyway, completely.
There he is. Look at him dance. That's my man right there.
He hasn't been on in forever.
Holy crap.
Huge pop. Should just get rid of these other clowns and give it to him. But, Reigns, when you look at him, he's a good-looking guy. He's got the beautiful eyes. He's a powerful muscle guy. It's like, doesn't he scream corporate douchebag heel? You know what I mean? Put him in the ponytail with the sunglasses. Like, to me, he screams like heel movie star Batista kind of guy, or whatever, horseman enforcer. Like, he doesn't scream anti-authority face. A good-looking guy could be a face, but not in this like anti-authority world. Like, you need a wild hellraiser.
If not him, then who?
Well, if they could clean up Dean Ambrose, I think he has the attitude.
Come on.
All right, well, you had one in Daniel Bryan that they pissed away for a couple of years, and then they finally go with him and he gets hurt. A guy like Kevin Owens connects with the crowd, can work, can brawl, is kind of sloppy looking. Like, if you're trying to recapture the Austin magic, you know what I mean? A guy like him, to me, is what you need. Now, I'm not saying Austin was an ugly dude, but he was a big, bald, angry, swearing, jacked-up asshole. Like, Reigns isn't that. He's mild-mannered. He's quiet. He's more of like an assassin. You need kind of that angry talker. I don't know. It's just, to me, Reigns doesn't scream lead face for the future of your promotion, at least at this point.
Yeah, I think, again...
It's heel Rock. I mean, and it's family members. You compare it to The Rock as well. Like, Pretty Boy Samoan didn't get over. When he became the guy with the sunglasses who was a douchebag, he got over, and then he became the big face. They missed that step with Reigns.
Yeah, the best thing that ever could have happened to The Rock was getting that knee injury and having to sit out and figuring out, hey, Rocky Maivia ain't working. So he and Russo came up with the idea for The Rock. So there you go. I think, again, they have something with Reigns, but I'm sorry, Ambrose is not the answer. Kevin Owens, I like that. And I think Owens over Ambrose. Now, Ambrose is going to be in a high-profile match at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar.
And Ambrose can be the Foley. Ambrose can be the Foley to Owens Austin. You know what I mean?
Exactly. The bump dummy.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all he's going to be. It's sad. It's really sad. I think they're going to set the stage with Owens and AJ Styles, which will be great. I think that'll definitely attract some viewers. But Owens could be the guy. So, all right.
What about Brock Lesnar as the guy? Like,
see,
why are we out on him?
Obviously, he would be the guy. But I think could there be some hesitation in them wanting to put all the cards in the table and say we're all in on Brock Lesnar, because he's defiantly part-time. He's negotiated his own schedule. He could leave for another opportunity at any time.
Kev, pay the man, and he ain't going anywhere. I mean, look, look at the matches, some of the stuff he's done and been in since he's come back. The guy clearly.
That's why I say, what could it be?
Right.
Is that it?
I don't
know. I would make the investment right now.
Right. I mean, to me, he's. I watched, watching that match last night. We're sitting there, and I'm like, God damn! I'm like, Reigns and Ambrose have been built up as like two of their bigger, best guys, right? I mean, Ambrose lost a lot a couple of years ago, but he's really picked up some steam. These are two guys that are presented as legitimate championship contenders for this promotion. Roman Reigns is the guy after John Cena. And they look like jobbers in the first 10 minutes with Brock Lesnar. I mean, he was just like destroying them. And even during the intros, it's like, how are these guys even doing the same thing? It was like a, Ultimate Warrior squash match in 1989. It's like Ambrose was like Tom Stone. You know what I mean? It's like, how does this guy...
like he's, he looks bad.
But even beyond look, I'm just saying like present, like overall just quality. You know what I mean? Like, and I like Ambrose a lot. And it's like, even Reigns looked like a clown. And Brock is just on such a next level to me that until you find someone that can believably dethrone or beat him, I just make him the guy. And he's clearly open to being on more. I mean, he was on SmackDown last week. So if you pay the man, even if he's on every other week and most of your specials, like what more do you need? Give him the belt.
And isn't it really the same schedule that Triple H is on right now?
Right.
He won at Rumble. He'll wrestle next at Mania.
But even if you want to be...
Why would anybody have a problem if that was Brock Lesnar?
No, and he did it last year. So, I mean, they'll do it. But if you want him to be... Their concern, I think, is kind of more the doldrum time, right? The spring and the summer. And then, they gave it to him in the fall the year before. But, he's a guy he's clearly the class of the company. And he's your biggest crossover star, your biggest name. I know they feel that Reigns could be that guy. I'd be running Brock out there, and he'd be my dominant guy, and he could be anti-authority. He could be that guy if they're looking to do the feud, Especially with Heyman talking for him. It's like, give those guys the belts, and screw you, Triple H. Come get it off of me. Find someone to take it off of me, tough guy. Like,
see, now that would be money. That's money.
Well,
now you just got to find ways to make it last,
right?
And
so they have no one that's believable. So.
Well, do they eventually get to that point? Because I think if Reigns loses, and we'll do this, we'll go in depth more on our next show. But if Reigns loses to Triple H, is it the best thing for him?
They can't. He won't.
Well, obviously, but I mean, again, they could change. They changed course before. Okay, is this how they change course? And do they go in a different direction with
Reigns is
Brock being the guy? Brock being the guy who steps out on the stage the night after WrestleMania on Raw, and Paul Heyman cuts a promo, and now you've got SummerSlam.
Well, let me ask you this, though. If you're going to do that, and that's your mindset like today, right, why wouldn't you just have Brock Lesnar win and then beat Triple H at Mania? To me, anyway. That's what I would do. Why? I mean, Reigns is already buried enough. Like, him losing a singles match to Triple H, if there's no shenanigans. I mean, if you tell me like Rollins comes out, I guess, but I mean, you're pretty much proclaiming him dead in the water. I mean, if he loses at Mania, like, it's over. I mean, it's officially over. At least at this point, if he wins, maybe you have a shot to save something. If he loses to freaking Triple H, it's done.
Well, we'll see. But I think, again, they've been listen, there's people who bet on this stuff. All right, that's how predictable it's become.
Mm-hmm.
It's predictable, and you can bet on it. So obviously, people are, the smart money now is on Reigns winning at Mania, and I don't think anything is going to change between now and April, whatever date it is. But it'd be nice if they would at least be open to other ideas. I know with Ring of Honor, there's always that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with just about every company, there's always that discussion. I don't know if that discussion happens. I can't get over how old Shane McMahon looks. Holy mackerel.
Well, he's old.
No, he's not. I think he's 40.
That's
41?
Yeah.
He's not old. All right, so let's do this. We'll dive in more on Mania in a couple of weeks, right? We'll have a full preview episode. Will we get one more in before Mania? So we record today.
Yeah,
then in
a couple
2 weeks,
in, right?
Yeah, we'll get two more in.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk just a couple of minutes quickly about the Ring of Honor 14th anniversary. Then we'll take a timeout. We'll get Canfora on the horn, and we'll put ourselves over to him, see if we can angle for jobs with CBS. And so this Friday, live on pay-per-view, I know everybody's very excited about the event in Las Vegas. It starts at 9 Eastern. It's traditional pay-per-view. Cable operator, satellite provider. I think it's also available, too, in the Flips TV app. But cable satellite provider is where just about everybody's going to watch it. I think you can also order it, too, through ROHWrestling.com. It's the 14th anniversary from Ring of Honor. And we know the main event, Jay Lethal defending the Ring of Honor World title against both Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly in a triple threat match. Tag team titles on the line. War Machine defends against the All Night Express in a no disqualification match. Grudge match between Adam Page and B.J. Whitmer. Plus, we'll also see the stars of New Japan in tag team action. You'll see Hiroshi Tanahashi and Unbreakable Michael Logan teaming up to take on the Briscoes. Plus, Kazuchika Okada, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, one-on-one against Moose. And Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the new Never Openweight six-man tag team champions, and they will be defending those titles, I understand, against ACH, Matt Sydal, and Kushida. So that's going to be very good. Plus, I know the TV title is going to be on the line, and Ishii's the new champ. Bobby Fish, Roderick Strong still in the mix. I don't know if they've announced what they're going to do yet, but anyway, we will. That's all going down, as my pal Larry Mercer likes to say. It's all going down at the ROH 14th anniversary live this coming Friday night on pay-per-view from Ring of Honor Wrestling. Television taping the next night. We're all very excited about it. Okay, let's take a timeout. Let's get Jason Canfora on the horn. We'll get him dialed in. I know he's done this before. He's an old pro, But we'll talk to him here on the Kevin Kelly Show when we return right after this.
PlaceMe Nation's Justin Rosero here. In addition to the Kevin Kelly Show, we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes and PlaceMeNation.com. You can check out Scott Criscullo and me on the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, with our famous Vintage Vault pay-per-view reviews. PTBN also covers current day wrestling with Main Event, Mission Indie Possible, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows with immediate feedback on WWE, NXT, and Ring of Honor Super Shows. And relive wrestling's past with our monthly pay-per-view rewind series, led by Ben Morse, and the Dangerous Alliance Wrestling podcast as we dive into various subjects in the form of exercises and games. We got sports covered too with the Sports Evolution Mega Show with Scott, Dr. G, Cowboy, and Cowboy Sr., the Kings of Sport led by Live Audio Wrestling's Godfather Nate Milton, as well as the NBA Team Podcast and the TJ McClune Show. PTBN tackles pop culture and irreverence with Richard and the Mailman, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, and if you like a hybrid of all of this in list form, check out Jordan Duncan's Rank and File. All of these shows are available on PlaceMeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus tournaments and more. We want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and Scott Keith's Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceMeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
This is Parv, and I'm here to tell you to listen and subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Only Place to Be Nation podcast network. That's the PWO PTBN podcast network, where you'll find a ton of in-depth shows done by hardcore fans. We've got Chris Zellner's 1-2 punch of Exile on Bad Street, and with David Bixenspan, a smash hit Between the Sheets. We've got Wrestling Culture with Dylan Hales and Dave Musgrave, Goodwill Wrestling and the reaction shows with Good Old Will from Texas. We got This Week in Wrestling with my man Pete and Johnny Sorrow, Stephen Graham and Tim Livingston's Pro Wrestling Super Show, Tag Teams Back Again with Kelly and Marty Sleaze, and a ton of other great shows too. And of course there's Titans of Wrestling and Where the Big Boys Play with yours truly and some dude from down south called Chad. PWO PTBN Podcast Network.
We're back on the Kevin Kelly Show, and in just a few moments we'll be talking to NFL insider Jason La Canfora, who's also a huge wrestling fan. We'll be talking to Jason in just a few moments. But right now, Justin, tell everybody what's going on, Place to Be Nation, where you can find the Kevin Kelly Show.
Sure. We're available on iTunes, Kevin, on a couple of feeds. One is the Place to Be podcast feed. You search that on iTunes. Kevin Kelly Show will come up if you subscribe there. And also, you can just subscribe to the Kevin Kelly Show on iTunes, and that'll be exclusive feed where you'll only get the Kevin Kelly Show. But if you do the Place to Be podcast, you'll also get all of our other podcast offerings. And we have a third feed, Kevin, the PWO-PTBN feed as well. And if you go there, you can hear tons of great shows as well, including Between the Sheets with Chris Zellner and David Bixenspan. The Exile on Bad Street podcast, that's with Chris Zellner as well, where they go deep dives into wrestling topics from all eras. We have sports podcasts. We have all kinds of other wrestling podcasts, both historical and current. We have, of course, the Main Event, and, of course, the flagship is the Place to Be podcast. That's Scott Criscullo and myself. We do Vintage Vault, diving into old WWF pay-per-views. We have interviews on that show as well, and that's how we discovered friendship with Kevin here. We're can be found on Twitter at Place2BNation, on Facebook.com/Place2BNation as well. So like us there, visit the website. We have new pieces up each and every day, both written and podcast. We'll never, you'll never be bored if you're a fan of Place2BNation.com. We do tournaments, we do TV, we do movies. We're currently rewatching every episode of Seinfeld and kind of doing a unique review of each of those. So plenty for you, tickling your fancy, both whether it's sports, wrestling, pop culture, TV, movies, all that stuff we have for you at PlaceToBeNation.com.
And so without further ado, let's go to the phones and let's talk to our new friend. This is a new friend. This is a huge get for us, as I told everybody before. If you are a football fan, you definitely know our guest because he is he's the NFL insider on CBSSports.com. He covers the NFL. You can hear him all the time on CBS Sports Radio and on all the CBS shows covering the league. And he's a big wrestling fan, but we're going to find out how his fandom all got started. But Jason La Canfora, welcome to the Kevin Kelly Show, man. It is great to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me. No, it's my pleasure. It's weird. I went about 25, 30 years without having the wrestling bug, and it's back. So it's funny. I was out the other night with my cousin, who we used to go to all the old WWF cards at the Baltimore Civic Center and the old Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, when we were kids. And I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was telling him about New Japan and how I started getting into that again with my kids in the last couple of weeks. And I think he's going to start checking it out now too. So I got everything that's old is new again.
It really is, and that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. So, okay, so how did you? Now you were, as we always say, a lapsed fan, and most of them, they go through the cycle. They grow up with it maybe sometime around high school when they're playing sports or they want to get girls. They stop watching wrestling. They might delve back into a little bit during college, but then once they start into the job world, then it may fall by the wayside. So how did you get back into wrestling, and how did you get back into watching New Japan of all things?
Yeah, well, I was into it early. When the WWF first broke big with I can't remember I think it was on CBS with the morning cartoon and everything, all the sort of post-Rocky stuff when Hulk Hogan just blew up and wrestling went huge. I mean, we started watching in the early 80s, and I lived in Baltimore City, and we didn't have cable did not come to Baltimore City until I was almost in college. So we would just get what we could get on the local UHF channels. So we could get Baltimore channels and DC channels. So we would get the WWF, I feel like we'd get it twice Saturday and twice Sunday. And then we'd started to get the NWA maybe once a week. But we didn't have TNT, we didn't have ESPN to be able to watch AWA and Texas Wrestling and all that stuff. But we were pretty into it, especially the WWF. So in the early 80s, we really got into it. And I would probably say, I was born in 74, so I would probably say from early elementary school, probably 6, 7, 8 years old, up until high school-ish, I guess, was probably when I was really into it. And it's weird that you mentioned college, because then I did, there had to be, I don't remember following wrestling at all in years before that. But then I went to school at Syracuse, and sometimes you get home from a party at 2 o'clock in the morning, you'd be flipping through the channels, and on one of the local cable networks, whatever the Western New York Sports Network used to be, or even SNY, you'd start to see ECW. And I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. So I can't say that I was into it. Never went to an ECW card, whereas we would go to WF cards all the time. But I kind of started paying attention to it. I knew who Taz was and some of these guys. And then I hadn't watched a match between then and 6 weeks ago. So, I mean, probably 19 – I was in college from 92 to 96. I probably hadn't watched a match from 95 until almost – whatever, this Christmas. And we were just flipping through the channels. I was home with the kids. They were on Christmas break. And I think Access was doing a New Japan marathon.
Right.
The day before Christmas Eve, I think it was. And we just happened to flip through it. And it was funny. I was there with my oldest are 11 and 9. And they just, their eyes lit up, and they just wanted to keep watching and keep watching and keep watching, and it reminded me of myself. And actually, my daughter, Chloe, reminded me of my mom, because my mom was pretty into it. And she would go to, the cards with us as kids. It would be my mom, my Uncle Vito, my cousin Mark, and my other cousin Teddy, and me. And, our grandmas would, pack us food and stuff, and we would go to,
awesome.
the WWF cards. So, yeah, it was totally random. And it reminded me kind of the old WWF. It's not, crazy sexualized. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You didn't have, over-the-top plots. It was just really kind of, to me, throwback athletic wrestling without a lot of the sort of other stuff that would come to it, which I understand why people like that. But my kids are so, you know what I mean, at the age that they're in, I really wouldn't want to like get into the whole lot of the other stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And now we watch every Friday night. It's like a ritual. Like, you know, like next week it's repeats, and like they're already all pissed off. They're like, well, wait a minute, we've got to wait 2 weeks to see it now. But it's perfect. Like, we're not going to the website. Like, we're not going crazy with it. It's just like once a week, and it's fun, and we talk about it and whatever. But I'm really impressed with the athletes that they have.
Yeah, they again, it's a the top of the top is in New Japan, no doubt about it. And for everybody, of course, that doesn't know, it's on Access. I know it's channel 340 on DirecTV. Check your local cable guide if you get Access. Sometimes it's on a premium, but it's definitely worth it. And it's Friday nights at 9 o'clock. And our pal Jim Ross is going to be calling the matches starting, I guess they'll start to air April 7th with Josh Barnett. And that's going to be very exciting for them. You can also, you know, and I think, again, probably to help with your new addiction, you should go visit NJPWworld.com, because that's a subscription website, but it'll help you kind of get caught up with everything. And they have English translation, which was the biggest thing for me. It's like, I don't understand this. The English translation is funny to read sometimes because
I bet it's probably a little crazy. Yeah.
But you pick up on just enough of it. Plus, you can watch the events, kind of in, sequential order. It's very helpful. So like you were asking, I know, when is Kenny Omega's IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match against Alex Shelley going to air on Access? I don't know. But I know when, I think that was around, it was June or July of last year.
I was going to say it's probably 6 to 7, 8 months ago. Like, because I figured out that it's lagging like 10 months behind. And so they hinted at that like 6 weeks ago, which means, I probably have a ways to go to actually like catch up. And it was kind of weird for us because like 2-3 weeks after we started watching it, then I started following a few different little things on Twitter just so I could tell my kids what's going on. And then it was like, oh, damn, the Bullet Club's gone. It's like, wait a minute, we just saw AJ Styles wrestle for the first time. Like, I had to explain to them, like, we'll probably get to see him wrestle like 6, 7, 8 more times, but he's over in WWE. Yeah, and for them, though, it wasn't like they're like, well, then we got to watch him in WWE. It was just kind of like, New Japan is our thing, and it's kind of quirky. And even, the way they do the interviews, the pre and the post match, the production value is kind of like, very old school, which again is totally cool. Like for the demographic that I have with these two, like that's perfect.
I'm surprised that they sit through that. Like it's because I have boys. I have a 20-year-old and I have an almost 9-year-old, and my 20-year-old's totally into it. He thinks it's the coolest thing, but he's kind of a Japanese nerd anyway because he loves anime and he loves all that stuff.
Okay.
But he didn't know about New Japan Wrestling until I started working with them. Now he's watching the shows with me and he's really totally into it. My 9-year-old, he likes the action, but the rest of it, he's like, why aren't they speaking English? What is this? Why am I watching this? Why are there words on the bottom? I got to go. And he's out. That's it.
Right.
So it's just, it's great that you and your and it's two girls, right? That you have daughters?
It's Rocco and Chloe. So my daughter's 11 and my son is about to turn 9 in a month. So
So you had an Uncle Vito. You have an Uncle Vito, and your son is Rocco. This is
my son Rocco is named after my grandfather Rocco, who was Vito's brother. So Vito and Rocco were brothers. My cousin Mark is Vito's grandson. I'm Rocco's grandson. And like I told my wife, once we started getting serious, like, hey, I just want you to know, like, if we have a boy, he's got to be Rocco. And like at first that was a deal breaker, but it grew on her over time, obviously.
Now, have you bumped into Taz in the halls of CBS yet? Have you talked to him yet? We got to get you.
No, is he hanging around CBS?
He's got a webcast. He's got a show every day. It's not a podcast; it's a show, and it airs on the website. So,
our website's based in Fort Lauderdale, so I'll have to find out because I live in Baltimore. I do my studio work out of New York City, so I wonder if he's doing stuff down there in Fort Lauderdale.
No, he's in New York. He's in the city.
New York.
Yeah.
It's going on CBSSports.com?
I think so.
I'll find out.
Justin, please look into that while Jason and I chat. I can never remember. I know I have the download link. So I don't even think about the website.
I didn't know that. No, that's pretty cool. I'll have to, if that's the case, I'll find out where he's doing that.
And I think you and him would get along really well because he's a like-minded individual. Absolutely.
Okay.
And
cool.
he's another crazy Jets fan. So, again, the off season for you now is not really an off season, right? Because it's a 12-month-a-year gig. Has it always been like this, or is it really ramped up over the last, 5, 10 years?
Yeah,
when has it got to be this
12-month-a-year
deal?
I'd say in the last 8 to 10 years, now that everything is a made-for-TV event, like when I first started going to the Combine, you'd have to explain to people what it was. Then with the advent of NFL Network and it becoming this, it's really kind of like reality TV, right? The NFL has done such a great job. They're a lot like Vince McMahon in marketing the subplots and marketing sort of the ancillary stuff that you wouldn't think would bring people in. Because again, you can only have so many, right? You can only have so many live matches. You're only going to have so many actual games. But the league has just done a tremendous job of getting people sort of hooked on all the parts that go into making the sausage. And the ratings that you get for the Combine, it blows my mind, and I'm in the middle of it. So yeah, I leave for Indianapolis in I don't know, I think I leave Wednesday morning. So yeah, the Combine is a big deal now. The start of the league year, when all these trades and free agent maneuvers can become official, that's obviously huge. The draft has just become, the draft is like a cottage industry in and of itself. It's a year-round deal. There's people doing mock drafts before the college football season starts for the draft that won't occur, until 9 months after that. It's mind-boggling. So yeah, then you're really deep in the draft mode. It does slow down in June. Usually mid-June, when teams finish what are called OTAs, organized team activities, which are basically spring practices. Those are pretty much all wrapped up by the middle of June. Most teams don't start going to camp until late July. Like Donovan McNabb was traded on July 4th. There's stuff that happens, but usually knock wood. Mid-June to mid-July is pretty dead. And then it starts ramping up again for camps, and then that's sort of when my season. My season basically is start at training camps through the Super Bowl, then you sort of decompress for 10 days, and then you have a second season which starts with the Combine and runs through the draft. And then usually when the draft is over, I can actually sort of exhale.
Then you can take a breath, and you can get refamiliar with your children and your wife, and. Right. Change and unpack your dirty drawers and get ready for the rest of the action. So I would assume you grew up a Baltimore Colts fan.
Yes.
And how did you? Now let's see. You were born in '74, so you were 8 years old when they moved in the dead of night.
They left in. I think they left in March. I think it was March of '80. Was it March of '82 or March of '83? I think it was at least March of 83. 82, you had a strike-shortened season. Like the 81-82 Colts historically are probably the worst 2-year run of professional football. It's right up there with a couple of those Buccaneers teams from the mid-'70s. Just horrible football. Yeah, and then I remember when they left in the middle of the night in the Mayflower moving vans, and it was March, and it was snowing, and it was all pretty surreal.
They're telling me it was March 29th, 1984.
84. Okay, so
you were 9-10 years old.
Yeah.
And here they are. Your team is packing up and leaving. What was that like for somebody that lived there?
Yeah, it was crazy. But I can even remember, like, before they left, like, there was for years, like, just listening, like, I can remember listening to the call, like, on the radio, like, the morning, news and stuff, driving to school with my dad, and there just being always reports about Irsay, the owner, and Bob Irsay, now obviously his son Jim owns the Indianapolis Colts, and like where he was, and report of Irsay in Arizona, report of Irsay in California, and there was always, like, for years before they left, there was, him fighting with the mayor, William Donald Schaefer, and eminent domain, and me just hearing these terms and just knowing, it's kind of like something bad is probably going to happen here, and they would catch up with Irsay. Like, I can remember watching the noon news one time as a kid, and, like, I was young. I probably had to be 7 or 8, and, like, I had, like, a little Sesame Street, like, fold over thing where you could eat like over your lap, if you know what I'm talking about. It had like the two little pull out things, and it was like Bert and Ernie and stuff. It was like probably metallic, kind of like a tin kind of thing. And like my mom turning on the news, and Irsay was bombed out of his mind. He had lots of issues with, substance abuse, and him slurring his words, and me like asking my mom, like, what language is he speaking? Like, what is he saying? And like, he was literally drunk at noon on a tarmac somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona, peddling the Baltimore Colts. It was crazy and surreal. And they just stunk so bad. I mean, they stunk. The games were blacked out. I mean, he was fighting with the city over a stadium. It was ugly. It was ugly. I wish I was born a few years earlier. I mean, people would talk about, 77 and the Ghost to the Post in the year, Burt Jones won the MVP. And I mean, Burt Jones was sort of like the first football icon that I can remember. But then he got hurt, and they blew out his shoulder, and the team went to hell, and it was guys like Mike Pagel, quarterbacking the Colts. And then they left, and I became a Chargers fan just because they were so much fun. It was Air Coryell, and just, they were throwing the heck out of the football. And that was cool. But, yeah, I grew up in Baltimore, and it was weird. Within 2 years, the Colts left, and then the other thing I can remember is when Len Bias died. And I was a huge Terps fan. That's another one where I can remember, like, all the local news, like any channel you switch to, it was all, like, all the programming stopped. And I remember my cousin calling me, and he's like, dude, you got to turn on the TV. He's like, I think Len Bias died. I'm like, oh, what do you mean Len Bias died? And, yeah, sure enough, Len Bias died.
I remember that like it was yesterday. And it's amazing how how his life, it just seemed to be that one. It wasn't like a constant thing with him. It was just he was just partying, right? And just a tragic accident, for lack of a better term. But again, those are the moments kind of that shape our lives and our fandom. And how is that? I know it was difficult because I went to Florida State, and I had a hard time. I didn't have a hard time not cheering in the press box, but I had a hard time being the same level of fan after I started to cover the team. Yeah. Did you how hard of a transition was that for you?
It was. I learned it early on. I mean, I started. I was lucky enough to be at my hometown paper, the Baltimore Sun, in the mid '90s when I was still in college. And like I was surrounded by so many incredible journalists that, like, you just learned, like, almost through osmosis, like, how to handle yourself, what's considered professional, what's not. Like, I had mentors like Buster Olney and Ken Rosenthal, and those guys obviously are, about as famous as baseball writers as there are in this country right now, and broadcasters for that matter. And even just, like in the winters when baseball was over, they would say, oh, well, just, you got to go listen to the Police Scanner. And there'd be people like David Simon hanging around the newsroom who went on to create The Wire. I mean, I could go on and on about the amazing talent that was there. So I just think I was incredibly blessed to be around all these, like, mega pros and just kind of learn, okay, this is how you conduct yourself in the locker room. This is how you handle yourself around pro athletes. This is what you do when Cal Ripken calls you out in front of the entire, media horde in the visiting dugout of Yankee Stadium, and you're 19 years old. So
that must have happened. The wound still sounds fresh after all these years.
Yeah, that happened. It's funny. I ran into him at Super Bowl 50. I hadn't seen him in a while, and he was on the sidelines before the game. And I kind of looked at him, and he looked at me, and he was kind of like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just, here broadcasting the game. What are you doing here?" I'm
working. This is my sport.
Yeah. So no, but it's a very different experience, and I'm glad that I'm beyond glad. I'm blessed that I got to learn a lot of those lessons.
Because I'll tell you,
sophomore or junior in college.
That's amazing that you had such great mentors coming up. But one of the things that's affected me, because again, I got into wrestling announcing as a fan. And I grew up I grew up in Florida, so I grew up wanting to be Gordon Soley. I didn't want to be Dusty Rhodes. I didn't want to be Mike Graham or Steve Kern. I wanted to be Gordon Soley. So that's who I got to be. And I noticed that as soon as I started working in professional wrestling, it affected my ability to kind of watch it from just a pure standpoint of fandom, of just being able to enjoy it without meticulously breaking down every nuance and detail of it. And so I watch it now, and a lot of it when I watch this, I watch these guys like they're my kids a lot of times, because I'm 48, so I'm old enough to be a lot of their dads, and I watch it like, oh, please, God, don't get hurt. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's my biggest thing. That's the thing, like with New Japan, it's a very aggressive style. And I think that, and they blast each other, man. How do you watch it like, because I know so much in the NFL, and this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So much in the NFL now, they're talking about concussions and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think about that stuff as you're watching New Japan?
I do, and it's weird how cognizant of it my kids are. I mean, when I was a kid, no one ever really talked. Like if you talked about concussions, it was like, oh, you got your bell rung, and maybe you saw stars, but it was like no big, you know what I mean? But obviously you kept playing the game, and not even like in a hero type of way. It just that's just what you did. So yeah, like they'll ask me like, oh, do you think you really got hurt there? And I explain to them that, sometimes it's almost like these guys are doing a dance, and the dance is so athletic that if you don't help each other out a little bit, somebody really will get hurt. So like they get that it's somewhat scripted, and they get that there's times where it looks worse than it is, but there's also times where obviously, that was a legitimate collision. Like that was, two unbelievable, close to 300-pound athletes getting vertical and colliding with each other.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a little difficult for them. And I definitely talk to them like through the match. And sometimes I'll DVR it back, and I'll be like, okay, did you see how he slammed his foot there, but he didn't actually hit the guy's head? So we kind of go through that, but it is like escapism. I mean, baseball is huge in our house because, like, in part just because I love it, and thankfully these guys love it as well. But when I covered baseball, I had to be different about it. But now that I cover football, it's just an escape. We can just go and root for the Orioles, and I don't have to worry that if something happens, I'm going to have to cover this, or I'm going to have to drop everything and get on the phone or jump in front of a camera or whatever. So we can go to home games, we can go to road games, and it's just something we do as a family. And this is kind of the same thing. And for me, we don't let the 4-year-old watch any of this. Like, he has to be upstairs. Like, he's already crazy. Like, like Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Like, thank God he doesn't know who that is, or he doesn't like have to emulate anything, but he's just got it in him. He's jumping on somebody and beating somebody up 24 hours a day. So he's not exposed to it at all. But it's something that we can just do and enjoy together. And and again, I feel like it's kind of just a little more bare bones and a little more without a lot of the sort of trappings and accoutrements and all the subplots. Like it's just a little more sort of bare bones, which is for their age demographic is perfect. I can explain what's happening with the match and how, at times it's not as bad as it looked. But obviously they understand that there's real danger involved, and you're looking at these guys and going off the top rope and the things that they're doing, the way they throw their bodies around. I mean, it's unreal.
So who are some of the dudes in watching, in sort of binge watching New Japan Pro Wrestling over the last couple of months? Who were some of the guys that you took to, that you liked? Who were some of the standouts that you would want to see again or want to learn more about?
I like this Maccabi. I like him. I like him a lot. I enjoy his matches. And there's just like humility to them as well. And obviously there's going to be heels, and there's going to be some guys who just have to go over the top or whatever. But I've enjoyed his matches. Really, I mean, there hasn't been much that I've watched and been like, that was kind of crap. The only match that I really watched that like we were like, oh, I wish I could fast forward through this or whatever, was they had like, I guess they were calling it NWA. Is that the same?
Oh, yeah.
They had like an NWA match on before the Never open weight title match this past, and I was like, oh, that was rough.
Yeah, that wasn't so hot.
It seems like they're showing the best of the best. So I haven't. I mean, there hasn't been a week where we've been like, oh, that stunk. I mean, there's times where we'll watch it again on Saturday. Like if Mateo's out, the little guy's out with his mom somewhere. They'll be like, can we rewatch that match? But yeah, I mean, AJ Styles was big with the kids, and Omega as well. But I really enjoyed a lot of the Japanese wrestlers and just their approach to it. And who's the dude with the MMA background who doesn't even look like he belongs in the ring? I can't recall his name. I've only seen him go once. It was a couple weeks back. He just looks like an average guy. Like he's not jacked up at all.
It's that Sakuraba?
Yeah.
He's got like a shirt on.
Yeah.
That's Sakuraba. He's the Gracie killer. That's his claim to fame, is that he's beaten all the Gracies in MMA. And in fact,
wow.
I saw him. So he was at Wrestle Kingdom this year that we called live on New Japan World. They had, before the Tokyo Dome event started, they had like their version of the Royal Rumble. And it was a lot of legends, and Sakuraba was in this. And I'm like, why does Sakuraba look like hell? Oh, because he was in an MMA fight like 4 days ago. So like his face was still coming down from being all swollen, and all the bruising is coming out. He didn't do a whole lot in there. He got beat pretty quick. But yeah, the dude he's legit, and as legit as you could get. Whether he's your favorite flavor of ice cream and as far as pro wrestling is concerned, to be determined. But yeah, there's so many different guys, and like Nakanishi is another one. He looks like the Thing to me. He's an older guy now, but he was an Olympic wrestler for Japan in, I think, 92. So he's been around for a long, long time. And then there's other legends like Tenzan, who you saw, Kojima, and some of those guys, some of the older generation. But this new crop and this new generation of guys, sort of invigorated with the foreign influence, with the Omegas and the Bucks and the Bullet Club and the rise of them, Fale and Tonga. But when you see so far, there's been, I think, just a handful of events for New Japan for 2016. Omega already. So he lost the junior title to Kushida at Wrestle Kingdom, but then the next night they threw AJ Styles out of Bullet Club. He and the Bucks. He dropped
because they knew he was going. Like I guess they already knew he was going.
Right.
Back to WWE or whatever.
So they fired Styles. Right. They got him out of the group. He dropped Nakamura on his head and issued the challenge for the title. Then Nakamura decides he's going to leave. He's going to go to the WWE. He just beat Tanahashi, Omega did, for the Intercontinental title.
I like Tanahashi a lot. He's another guy I like watching. Yeah.
The most common comparison with him is John Cena. Like if you haven't seen Japanese wrestling before, and if you want to say, okay, who's kind of like the John Cena? Well, that would be Tanahashi. He's so much more, though. He really is. But dude's a rock star. And, of course, finally Okada beat him at the Dome, which is something that he couldn't do before. So Kazuchika Okada is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and Kenny Omega is the Intercontinental Champion. And Makabe and Honma are the Tag Team Champions. And Kushida's the Junior Heavyweight Champion, and now Omega and the Young Bucks are the new Never Openweight Six-Man champs.
Okay.
And Shibata beat Ishii to become the Never Openweight champ at Wrestle Kingdom. So I think that's pretty much everybody. But yeah, Shibata's legit, Ishii's legit, Makabe. You wouldn't want to meet any of those guys, as they say in a dark alley. But
now, how like, if you don't mind me asking a question, because how does is the WWE? Well, and I'm sure everybody's contract's different, but I mean, are there guys in New Japan who make comparable to what sort of a mid-level guy in WWE makes, or like is it a wide scale, or you know what I mean, or are most of these guys sort of approximately in the same ballpark? Or
I think that I don't know if I could draw like a linear comparison, but I think that the way guys are compensated in Japan is comparable to WWE. I think that would be safe to say. Like probably they're not making top money. They're not making Cena, Brock Lesnar money.
Right.
But they're in the neighborhood of the range of comfort. And I don't know how much, like maybe the office takes care of their housing. Maybe they take care of all of these different things, because again, it's a culture, and it's something that they've come up from since they were, whenever they got done with, say, college, and they became young boys, and they were, they started in the dojo, and they've worked their way up. and they were sent away on excursion. I mean, like New Japan will take young guys, right? So they train them in their dojos, and then they send them on excursion where they'll pay all of their expenses to go to Mexico, to go to England, go to the U.S., and wrestle for a year to 18 months, and then bring them back. Because
so they're
on
short-term contracts over there just to keep developing their style and be exposed to different stuff and different audiences and showmanship and all that stuff.
But they're paid. Everything
That's pretty
is
cool.
taken care of. All their housing, everything is taken care of. And
which shows in the product. I mean, it shows in the product.
It really is. And you see the difference like in the athletes too, because we do a lot of work with Ring of Honor where we do development camps and teaching camps, and we see a lot of guys and they don't come in the best of shape. But man, everybody that comes out of that dojo, they're phenomenal. They're in shape like you wouldn't believe because that's all they do is work out. All they do is eat this high protein rice dish. I think it's called chongo, for lack of a better term. I can't remember exactly. Okay. But that's all they do is they eat this and they do squats and they take apart the ring and they wash gear and they train. And that's pretty much it.
Wow.
That's how you
Now,
live.
that was my other question. Ring of Honor, what is that? That's like, because it seems like there's guys from different, like, leagues, for lack of a better term, who wrestle in there. Or am I wrong about that?
No. And Ring of Honor is now in its 14th year. And a few years ago, we met with New Japan and had a mutual interest in kind of working together. So, because it just works out. So we have television. In fact, Ring of Honor is owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group right there in Baltimore.
Oh, in Maryland, yeah. Okay.
And they air every week on Fox 45 and on CW Baltimore. And I'm the voice of Ring of Honor.
Okay.
So we have a lot of guys like Red Dragon and Michael Elgin and the Young Bucks. And let me think of who else you might have seen there in New Japan. Anyway, so over the course of the last 3 years, we started with co-promoting shows. We brought a lot of the New Japan guys over, and they wrestled in Toronto and New York. And then last year we added Philly, and now this year it's going to be Chicago, Detroit, Toronto, and New York. So and a lot of the top stars of New Japan come over and wrestle in events here in the U.S. And we just sent our guys over there to do 2 events this past weekend.
Oh, cool. That's
at
great.
Cork Hall. So we co-promote a lot of different things. We share talent on a lot of different things. Our companies are very much like-minded. So that's why it works out. And that's one of the reasons. It's one of the growth strategies for both companies. Because we're their gateway into kind of that American audience.
Right.
Along with Access TV, along with what they're doing on the website. And with Ring of Honor, we're trying to grow our global brand and expose our guys as the stars that they are. They're for our money's worth and for our opinion, they're the best. So let's put them up against the best that Japan has to offer, and that's New Japan Pro Wrestling. So
okay,
it's worked out, and it's been great. So I think if your kids like New Japan, I have a feeling they might like Ring of Honor too.
Okay.
That's a fair.
Yeah, because I saw that pop up. I think I just did like a DVR search on wrestling, and I saw that popped up, and I think I might have taped the tail end of whatever the card was over the weekend. I think it showed up on Nessun or something like that.
It's on Nessun too, right?
Yeah, it might have been like a 2 a.m. Nessun that I think half of it taped on my DVR or something.
Yeah,
like that. So we'll check that out.
Starting in like a month, or let's say a month, the shows that we did in Japan will start to air on.
Cool.
Ring of Honor Wrestling. So it'll be a good 4 to 6 weeks of TV is going to be from the Honor Rising shows. So you'll see a lot of the Japanese guys, a lot of the Ring of Honor guys, and I think by the time as you get some downtime, like you said in June, you'll be able to settle in, kind of binge watch, and then you shut your brain off for the league. Once that starts up again when camps are in session. All right, so I got to ask you a couple football questions here.
Yeah, sure.
And Justin's going to come on because he's going to pick your brain about the Jets. Real quick, much ado about nothing with Cam Newton at the Super Bowl. Was the controversy of his post-game presser, was that overblown?
I can't say much ado about nothing. And I'm a Cam Newton guy. Some would probably label me a Cam Newton apologist, but I feel like the degree of sort of scorn and personal animosity that he's had to endure from before he ever stepped foot in the league. I mean, I mentioned the Combine. I mean, I can vividly remember the things people were saying and writing about him and his press conference at the Combine, when he was transitioning from Auburn to become to becoming, an NFL player. And I just felt like it was over the top. But he does some things that bring it upon himself, and he had to comport himself better than he did after that game. Now, I also say shame on the NFL for not having separation of church and state. I've been in a million mix zones, or whatever you want to call them, post-game press conferences. I mean, I don't know how many Super Bowls I've been to, 12 or 15 or whatever. I've never seen one where anyone on the losing team was anywhere near where they could hear someone from the winning team ripping them. You know what I mean? So, the fact that he's got, Chris Harris basically calling him out and saying you're a chump and we knew you couldn't throw from the pocket and all this stuff, that's not supposed to happen. But it's not an excuse, and Cam's got to be better than that. And Cam made a business decision in the game not to jump on that football. I don't think they're winning that game, even if he recovers that fumble, because literally they had no one making plays. I mean, they were running out of offensive. Once Philly Brown left that game, there was nobody else in that offense who was going to make a play. They weren't going to let Greg Olsen do anything. Jonathan Stewart's running around on one knee. The fullback Tolbert, who I love, once he fumbled, he was done. He's mentally checked out. He was gone. Who was going to make a play? I mean, it was not, Ted Ginn couldn't catch a ball all day. Jericho Cotchery couldn't catch a ball all day. So, whether he, recovers that fumble or not, I don't think they're winning that football game. But yeah, it was not Cam's finest hours, but he'll be back. And I'm really hoping, as someone who likes to see the sport evolve and the way the game is played evolve and the way people think about certain positions evolve, I really hope this Cam Newton-Russell Wilson thing, they keep meeting in the playoffs. And maybe that becomes the next Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. You know what? Those guys met 18 times in the postseason or whatever it was. I'm not saying that Cam and Russell will meet that many times, but I don't think we've seen the last of those two hooking up in January, to determine who goes on to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I know that watching that, you could see how, I always wondered about the loss of Kelvin Benjamin and never having him as the number one all season long. Would it come back to haunt them? And once Tolbert dropped the ball, basically, and it was Cotchery that had the disputed catch that wasn't
if
early.
If they rule out a catch and/or he just catches the ball, I think Carolina wins that game. They're never down 10-0. The whole key to that game was they're down 2 scores that quickly.
Yeah.
And Denver just squats on the ball for the next 50 minutes. Basically Denver's like, hey, Peyton, just don't choke. And they could get away with it barely because of that 2-possession lead right off the bat. If that doesn't happen, if Carolina goes down there and kicks a field goal to make it 3-3 or goes ahead 7-3, it's a completely different football game.
Right, and my buddy would have won $400 in his Super Bowl pool because that was the score that he had. So he was a little pissed that catch didn't happen because I was saying, watch this now, they're not going to score and you won't win any money, haha. And because he was crowing about his squares, he thought he had the best squares.
The messed up thing about all that is, Cotchery's still in the league for 2 reasons: his head and his mind, and they both sort of repeatedly failed him in that he's not there because of his legs. He's not there because he can separate. He's not there for really anything physically. It's just that if you throw the ball near him, he's incredibly sure-handed, and he's smart and savvy enough to find seams to still get open, even though he's not going to run past anybody. And yet, his hands deceived him repeatedly. What's
going to be the biggest? What's the thing that you think is going to change the most in 2016? Is it the move of the Rams? What's going to change for the viewer? What's going to change for the fan? New rules coming down? Will the increased salary cap affect things? What can we expect?
I think what's going to continue to change is the way football is consumed. We at CBS produced a regional game this year on a Sunday morning, competing with a bunch of other games between, I think it was Jacksonville and Buffalo, and Yahoo spent $30 million to show it over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Thursday night package, which is now split between CBS and NBC and the NFL Network, they're also doing, one-offs on the internet for the rights to those games, which they haven't even found the highest bidder yet. So I just, it's a made-for-TV sport. Everything, the square of the field fits in the square of your TV, and it's just been so made for TV for so long. And now not everybody wants to sit in front of their TV. So how do we continue to make this accessible? Well, I think the way it's packaged on the web is going to continue to evolve, and I just have a feeling more and more people are going to be consuming NFL games on their phones, on their tablets, as they move around, as they go about their business. You're going to be able to follow your fantasy football team. You're going to be able to see the highlights in real time. You're going to see the games in real time. I mean, I don't think it's probably all that long before you have a version of the Red Zone channel on your phone and everything else. So, they saw, a game that otherwise would have generated no buzz, that would have been lost in a shuffle, drew numbers that they were comfortable with to the point where, now there's going to be a whole bidding process on those games. I just think you're going to continue to see things evolving to the point where at some point, I bet in the not too far future, you're going to be able to program your fantasy football team into your computer or into your television, and it's going to be your personalized Red Zone channel.
Oh.
Where anytime any of your guys is doing something, right, it's going to whip you around to those.
Dude, that would be amazing.
It's going to happen. Or it's going to be like, I'm a huge soccer fan. So, I have friends who live abroad, and they have channels over there where you're watching, if you're watching an English Premiership game over there, there might be cameras that are just fixed on certain guys where I want to see the game through Lionel Messi's eyes or whatever. Like, I'll be able to, do I want to watch the game through Tom Brady's eyes? Or, eventually I think you're probably going to be able to hear some of the communication between coaches and player. You're going to be able to get that, maybe not in real time, but through a relatively quick filter. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really intrigued by. And I just know that the league, they make so much money and they continue to push the envelope, and they know that they can't sit still. So, you mentioned, LA, and that's obviously going to be huge. And, they're playing a game in Mexico City this year. They really want to put a franchise in London, whether that works or not, I don't know. But there is a huge commitment to that and how they grow the game. And innovation is the word that Roger Goodell speaks to at Park Avenue to his employees all the time, and I think it will continue to show in the way we consume football.
It's going to be great to see, and I know as a Giants fan, we got lucky and we stole 2 Super Bowls in the luckiest fashion ever. Built mediocre teams.
No. That's look. A ring is a ring, man. And
a ring is a ring. But
you
listen,
did it twice in pretty short succession, and you beat historically significant teams both times you did it.
But we did it with just miracle plays. I mean, come on, the Tyree catch and then the Manningham catch a couple of years out. Come on, man. They haven't done anything since.
But look, for the longest time, Timmy Smith was the all-time rushing leader in a Super Bowl. He had 215 rushing yards in a Super Bowl for the Washington Redskins. Nobody even knows who Timmy Smith is. You know what I mean? That happens, right? Dexter Jackson was a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, Larry Brown and these guys.
Every time they said the Giants were going to be good, they couldn't get it. They would go 8-2,
right.
And then they would blow it. And then when they barely scrape by and Coughlin's about to lose his job, then they go on the miracle run and they win the Super Bowl. So it was either or as a Giants fan. I love them, but they drive me crazy.
Well, but the thing that the one constant about those two teams was they could get after the quarterback. They could shift the paradigm of a game. They didn't have to sell out to do it. They could rush 3 or 4 and still make Tom Brady have one of his worst postseason games ever without having to sell out, without having to bring 6, 7, 8 guys, without having to blitz like crazy. I mean, they had, an absolutely, when they brought that NASCAR package, forget about it. And people couldn't block them. I mean, it was not that much different than what Denver did. I mean, Denver, I mean, if I'm the Giants fan, I feel better about what they did than this Denver thing. I mean, they literally had a quarterback just not even try, just don't do anything. Just don't throw the ball in the second half of these games, and we're going to try to win anyway. I mean, it's not like the Giants were doing that.
Yeah, that's true. They still had to have Eli lead him down the field 2 different times, and Plaxico Burress with the slant and go, and then of course, I'm thankful that they won the 2 rings. I'm very happy for that. I hope more. And of course, my producer Justin, huge Jets fan. He's in agony most seasons. Justin, I know. Do you have some questions for Jason, because he's here to ease your pain and get you ready for this next season?
I want to know if, this vision you have, Jason, of this interactive experience takes us right into the bathroom where Tom Brady's deflating all the footballs. Is that part of it?
It wasn't Tom. It was the
fall guy.
deflator and the other guy. You talk about the most overblown, ridiculous thing in the world. Like Tom Brady needs doctored footballs to win. It's ridiculous.
So beyond that, all right, who's going to be the Jets quarterback? Is Fitzmagic back?
Yeah. I think all things being equal, it's Fitzpatrick. Look, if he's and he probably will come in at first looking for unreasonable money, and that could drag out for a while. And if for some reason Kirk Cousins becomes actually available, if the Redskins don't franchise him, then I think things could get interesting because he is someone who appeals to the Jets, who they've liked in the past, who they dabbled with trading for a year ago. But short of that, and I don't think he's going to be available. I'd be very surprised if he's not franchised. Then it's Fitzpatrick. They don't want anything to do with Kaepernick. They're not going to do it. They don't want the circus back in town with RG3. There's not really, Sam Bradford? They don't want Sam Bradford. Their director of personnel, Brian Heimendinger, was with Sam Bradford for years in St. Louis. He knows exactly what that guy is. They're not going that route. So you start to run out of options. You know what I mean? And they won too many games to get a quarterback. If they were sitting there and, Goff or somebody else would fall to them, that would be one thing. Would a Connor Cook, if he's still there, intrigue them? A little bit, maybe, but by that point they've already re-signed Fitzpatrick. So I think Geno's gone. I think they'll continue to try to develop Bryce, and they'll try to sign Fitzpatrick to a deal where the guaranteed money is essentially paid out over the next 2 years. So it'll look like a 4 or 5 year deal, but in reality, it'll probably be a 2-year bridge contract.
And you wonder too, Fitzpatrick takes a little less. You look at the offense he's in; it's like the perfect situation for him with the weapons and Chan Gailey and everything else.
And the thing for him too is, where is he going? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He's not going back to Houston. You know what I mean? He's not going to the Rams. Where? I don't see him with Chip Kelly. You know what I mean? So Chan Gailey is perfect. He's been with Chan. They've had a pre-existing relationship going back to Buffalo. I think at the end of the day, just much like Osweiler, it just makes too much sense for all parties to stay where they are, that in the end, I'd like to think that common sense still rules the day sometime in this league.
So I got a question, Jason. So Goff's the first quarterback off the board this year. How far is he going to go? How far down?
Look, it may be the kid from North Dakota State, too, the Wentz kid. I'm interested to see how much he does at the Combine. And, I'll really start picking people's brains about these kids in particular, coming up in the next 3 to 5 days. But I don't know that it's a guarantee that Goff is the first one. People seem genuinely intrigued by this kid. Look, Joe Flacco played at Delaware, you know what I mean, in the CAA or whatever. That wasn't world-class competition. So it's going to be very interesting. I think Cleveland, all things being equal, at 2 takes one of those 2 quarterbacks.
Interesting.
So you mentioned the Jets draft position, and one of the rumors that was kind of floating around last week was the Giants' interest in Muhammad Wilkerson and maybe trading that 10th pick. What are your thoughts on the D-line? Is Wilkerson back? Is he gone? Do they keep Snacks? What's the future for Sheldon Richardson? It seems like a lot of questions there.
Yeah. No, you're on it. I wrote about the Wilkerson thing last week. The Giants have very real interest, and I don't think it's out of the question that they would trade a pick that high for Wilkerson because, again, you're talking about someone who just turned 26, who isn't really even in his prime yet, who is viewed as a complete difference maker, who can play 3 or 4 different positions, who would deal with an acute need. And as I posed it to some people in the Giants organization, just talking hypothetically about it, how many kids in this draft playing the position of need for your football club will outperform Muhammad Wilkerson over the next 36 months? And really? Even if some of the quarterbacks do, well, that doesn't count because you're paying Eli Manning $20 million a year, so you wouldn't have taken them anyway. You know what I mean? So, how many corners, how many D tackles, how many, whatever, offensive tackles are going to be better than Muhammad Wilkerson from this draft over the next 3 years? So we'll see. I don't think they're going to be able to keep Harrison. The money's going to be too high. I think he's going to do very well on the open market. And look, they're not, they're going to have to franchise Mo, whether that leads to a trade or not. So no, I don't see Harrison staying. In Richardson, his off-field issues, he's got the opportunity to determine his own worth.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be Alden Smith or is he going to be Von Miller? One guy is out of the league for a year and will come back in the middle of the year and with the Raiders and play for the vet minimum and do another prove-it contract to try to show he's a viable NFL player. The other guy is about to become the highest-paid defensive player in the history of the league. He's no longer in the drug program and has, stayed completely out of trouble since 2013. So, how is Sheldon wired and who does he become? It's going to be up to him. But obviously, them taking Leonard Williams where they did a year ago, they still have a little bit of protection there. And they've got some other needs outside of the interior defensive line that they need to address and trying to find a real edge pass rusher and some other things. But I like the organization they built there. I like Todd Bowles a lot. I like Mike McCagnon a lot. I like a lot of their scouts and front office people. I think that they did so well to get all the circus is out of town. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Rex took the circus with him up to Western New York.
Oh, yeah.
And New York City is the Jets or Jersey, wherever the hell they are. It's just football. They're back to basics. And I thought they had a hell of an offseason last year. They stole Fitzpatrick. They stole Brandon Marshall. Had the Buster Screen, a lot of smart signings. If they can have another offseason like that, they'll be in the mix.
Well, Jason, listen, I told you we would probably talk for about half an hour or so, and we're steaming towards an hour. So we're going to give you back. Dude, we'll give you back your Monday night. But listen, I want to make you this promise. I'm going to stay in contact with you. And the next time that Ring of Honor is in Baltimore, we definitely want to have you and the kids out as our guest. Okay?
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
I also, off air, I'll get your address, and I'll see if I can hook you up with some New Japan swag, some stuff. I got pulls, so we'll be able to make that happen.
Awesome. If you guys are around New York City during the football season, any weekend, want to swing by the studios and meet Coach Cower and Bart Scott, who actually got in the ring on more than one occasion.
Now we have that would be. I'll recruit him. One of our guys in Ring of Honor, by the way, Quinn Ojanaka, played in the league for about 7 years. Syracuse product, and now as Moose is told. Go look up Moose on Moose Wrestling, and you will see what this dude is all about, man. He's 6'5". He's leaned down since playing on the O-line, but incredible vertical, just amazing athlete, tons of power, and he's like a showman. He really gets it. So he's going to be a ginormous star. He signed with us 2 years ago. He just came back from his first tour in Japan. He just did awesome for New Japan this past weekend. So he's a name to watch. So
terrific.
We'll hook you up. All right.
Terrific.
Listen, we got a new friend. We got a new friend. I'm so excited. This was great. If you want to follow Jason La Canfora on Twitter, please do so. It's his name, Jason La Canfora, Canfora. He's the NFL insider for CBS. You can read his work, cbssports.com, football, New Japan Pro Wrestling. He does it all, and he's been our guest here on the Kevin Kelly Show. Jason, thanks once again.
My pleasure, Kevin. Anytime. Thank you.
So, yeah, we'll definitely have Jason back on here in the near future. His schedule sounds crazy, though, right? Because he's got 3 kids. He's traveling all over the place. He's going to the Combine this week. Now he's got then it gets quiet for a couple of weeks, but then it really starts up in earnest over the summer, and it rolls all the way through to now. And that's with breaking news and headlines and everything else. I didn't even get to ask him about, I'm sure he sleeps with his, BlackBerry and his phone and everything else by his bed, and his stuff's going off 24/7.
Patient wife, I'm sure.
Oh boy. Well, she was patient with the Rocco deal, but now did you have to float? Did you have a name issue with your kids, or was it mutually agreed upon? I know with my wife, we had a big difference of opinion, and then we finally settled.
No, my daughter's name pretty much once we tossed it out, we did it a lot. She was actually named after. So my wife actually had some issues. Celebrity at the time that was having similar issues, and just because we kind of felt, we went through a lot of the same stuff at the same time, and my wife used it as a sort of inspiration. So that kind of led to that, but it made sense. And then my son's name I threw out very early on. and like she was kept going back and forth, and then she finally decided.
Well, there you go. Okay, so just to, because we started talking about this earlier on, like what was going on as we record this on a Monday night with Shane McMahon coming back to Raw, and now apparently in the mix for a WrestleMania match against The Undertaker.
That kind of blows away a little bit of our Cena stuff from earlier, but I don't know. You and I were both talking off air. We both seem to maybe not buy. It seems like a red herring. If you remember back when you were around, so in '99, where they did all the teases, Austin versus China, Austin versus, they kept changing. This seems real fluid. Like, I can't see Shane McMahon in a Hell in a Cell.
No, I can't either. And, again, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors with both guys. So, does some of the smoke and mirrors involve John Cena? I don't think that they are mutually exclusive. Cena return is not kiboshed or out of the mix in any way, shape, form, or fashion because of the announcement tonight of Shane McMahon and Undertaker. I wonder how long that's been in the works. Has that been the plan all along? We talked earlier on about how everything is so predictable.
Right.
You can set your watch to it. You can place bets to it. So when did this come about? And when did it change? And when did it become? Or has this always been the way it's supposed to be?
I don't think so. I mean, the story for a while, up until about 2 weeks ago, was Taker versus Braun Strowman. And then all of a sudden, the sheets have said, like, okay, that's dropped. They kind of talked Vince out of it. And now, I think it was 2 weeks ago where the rumor came out that Taker's opponent is someone not in the roster. That was the word there. I mean, they obviously knew of it a week ago because they set it up by doing the Vince and Jay McMahon award tease, right? So they obviously had this plan. I would say probably within, and you also wonder if it is Cena being involved, when do they learn that he's helping, right? I mean, we could get something where Cena's out there in Shane's corner and he gets involved in the sale somehow. So there's still plenty of ways they can take this. Why bring Shane back for this tease and just have him lose and then just keep things the same, And they're really going to have Shane McMahon get a WrestleMania win over Undertaker. It seems weird as well. So, I think something's going to shake out here. I'd be shocked if in Dallas we have Shane McMahon, Undertaker, Hell in a Cell for control.
I think it's very, very strange. But that's the way it was, and we'll see how things shake out. So I thought we had an outstanding show tonight. Great get with Jason La Canfora.
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of diss Sean Grandy a little bit when I did say that he was our best non-wrestling guest, Jason, but I was caught up in the moment. I was a little hyped. I couldn't,
You get hyped, you stay hyped,
Yeah, man. So we've done some really good work here on this show.
Yeah, I can rest
we
easy.
We found, well, first of all, we discovered AJ Styles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
we got him back on the map. I mean, what was he doing, really, before he came on the show?
I don't know.
All of a sudden he explodes, hits, New Japan, blows up.
Right. I saw him in 2002, and, when we tried him out, then he disappeared.
Yeah.
Like for all these years, and then he comes back, and he's going to be in Ring of Honor.
New hair.
And he goes to New Japan. Mm-hmm. And with new hair. I was like, where was this hair in 2002? Right. Maybe this could have gotten you the job. Mm. But anyway, Sean Grandy, DDP, now Jason La Canfora. Mm-hmm. Who else? We've got a whole range of guests.
Yeah, Ray Rowe, Hanson, all the Ring of Honor guys, Adam Cole. Stevie Richards was a great guest we had on. Our friend John Walters was on a couple weeks ago. Dale Arnold, Moose.
Dale, that was another guy. Oh, that's another legend I slided. That's another non-wrestling guy.
But whatever,
sorry.
He's a big Pats apologist, so he can go.
That's true. Speaking of which, we got to get Roddy Strong on the show. Mm. I was looking at the list of names in the 51 episodes that we've done, and I was like, Roddy is the one name that we've left out. Not on purpose. It's just, how do we not have Roderick Strong in the mix? So we got to get Roddy.
You got to get Cheeseburger on, man.
We got to get Cheeseburger. We've got to get Mick Foley, and we've got to get Pete Gas. Mm. Gaspo's a friend of mine.
You can get him. I tried tweeting him, but I'm a nobody. I got lucky with La Canfora. I need you to do the direct, drive-by.
I'm friends with Gas, so I will make that happen.
Do it.
We'll have him on for a little pop right before WrestleMania.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll talk, the fond memories of the Mean Street Posse.
One of my favorite gimmicks.
Oh, it was so good. And those three guys together, forget it. They were a scream.
Worked their asses off.
We walked around. We had TV, or SummerSlam it was, in Minneapolis, where Jesse Ventura was the guest referee.
Mm-hmm.
So we got there the day early, and me and Gas and Rodney and Joey Abs went to the Mall of America, just wandered around for hours and ate and had a good time and just laughed our asses off. Those guys were so cool. They really were. And they were just so appreciative of being there. So, yeah, we'll make all that happen. But that's our guest lineup coming up over the next few weeks, months. You know what I mean? A lot of good stuff planned. All right. So that's it for this edition of the Kevin Kelly Show. Dan McGinn, thank you as always for everything that you do. JR, thank you so much for toughing it out when you're sick. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody taking out times from their family and making this a part of your listening day. Whether you listen at work, whether you listen on the way to work, whether you don't work, whether you quit your job just to listen to this show, whether you go to college, grade school, high school, doesn't matter. Thank you very much for listening to the Kevin Kelly Show, for taking it with you, for being a part of the Place to Be Nation. We're all in this together. So continue to support the site. Check out all the great shows that we have on there. Read all the material and become one with it. And it will change you. And then tell 10 friends, and then have them tell 10 friends. And then pretty soon, we'll take over the world. All right. So for everybody here behind the scenes and for all of you listening, thank you so much. Thanks to Jason, our special guest. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, the next edition of the Kevin Kelly Show here on the Place to Be Nation. Our website home, placetobenation.com.
I have a big bottle of cough syrup of codeine calling my name. Wake up to get ready to rig the thing I wore for the ass motorboating.
A tree fell on Greg Abbott.
You know, I'm only 50 now, and the phone could ring at any time.
Basically, because she had Tommy John and had a strong arm, she gave these awesome hand jobs that he was like obsessed with.
This honey is from Hazel's Honey Hut.
But by the way, speaking of food and Bush,
I think Chris Jericho is who Michael Hayes would like to be.
Always had a lot of issues with Cox, or have you dealt with Cox better in the past?
I used to enjoy dealing with Cox.
Then people would be more inclined to buy the network and watch the shows.
I'd buy the network for a happy ending.
I do not know where Steve Austin is. He saw the gun, and he left. Oh my God, he's back!
All right, here we go. So I got to piss. Be right back.
Will you do my wife and I the honor of purchasing you...
wait a minute.
I don't get butthurt.
Bye.